It's Sunday, the 26th of January. My name's Juan Brown. You're watching the Blanco Lirio channel, and tragic news out of Southern California today. The loss of Kobe Bryant and 4 other souls on board his S-76B Sikorsky helicopter just this afternoon. We just had a weather front pass through California here. In Northern California, this weather front produced almost 2 inches of rain. In Southern California, at the scene of the accident, this produced some low ceilings and mountain obscuration along the flight plan path that this accident occurred. This accident occurred about 1 in the afternoon today. The flight originated out of Orange County, and it appears as though the flight path headed up roughly I-5 and then left on Highway 101 as Kobe was trying to get to the sports academy, the Mamba Sports Academy, located in Thousand Oaks. Somewhere as the flight took the west turn down the Highway 101, flying at fairly low altitude, it appears that the aircraft attempted a turn, what I believe to be a 180-degree turn to what I believe to be deteriorating conditions. As you can see in the accident investigation photographs or the rescue operations, you can see the ceiling just above the wreckage. Here's the ADS-B data from Flight Radar 24. The graph along the bottom, the yellow line, represents the ground speed. The Sikorsky S-76 is capable of 150 knot cruise speed, which you can see on the graph, and then he slows down to nearly 50 knots during a portion of the route of the flight. The ADS-B altitude is shown in blue and reaches only about 1,000 feet throughout much of the flight, with a sharp climb at the very end. The flight was following the freeway, and according to air traffic controllers, he was following special VFR flight regulations, which means at this low altitude, the flight needed to remain within 1 mile of visibility and clear of the clouds. Controllers advised 72 Echo X-ray that the weather at Van Nuys was 2.5 miles visibility and just an 1,100-foot ceiling. Victor over at VAS Aviation already has the audio tapes up. At this point in the flight, the aircraft was too low for flight following, and that's noted on the tapes. That doesn't mean that he's too low to the ground. It just means that he's too low to get a radar signature to continue flight following services. Looking at pictures of the crash scene, we can see that the ceiling obscures the mountains around the scene of the accident. The weather is closed in, and visual flight can no longer be maintained along this flight path. This is a classic problem in helicopter operations: continued flight into deteriorating conditions, what we call in the business scud running, when we're trying to outrun the weather. The Sikorsky S-76B helicopter is a top-of-the-line executive helicopter. It's got all the best features in it. It's twin-engine, turbine engines. Usually they come complete with an autopilot, terrain mapping software, stability augmentation system. But there's some misconceptions with helicopters that I want to clear up right now that tend to lure helicopter pilots into scud running type of operations, because they can fly low and they can fly slow, but you cannot simply stop a helicopter in IMC or in the clouds and attempt to hover and get yourself out of a situation. You need to continue to fly the helicopter like an aircraft, particularly in IMC or IFR conditions. We don't know who was flying the helicopter at the time and what his ratings were and what his currency was with instrument conditions. These are all things the NTSB investigators will be looking at very closely. But with a helicopter, even like the Sikorsky S-76, it's got some autopilot limitations to it, and some of you Sikorsky drivers can jump in here in the comment section below and clarify this. But as you slow down the helicopter, the autopilot, if you want to fly a helicopter on autopilot, you've got to maintain a minimum speed, I think in the Sikorsky, of about 65 to 75 knots in order for the autopilot to remain engaged. Below that, the autopilot will simply kick off. So you do not have the autopilot safety feature if in the event that you get into inadvertent instrument conditions, if in the event that you inadvertently fly into the clouds. You need to be able to see reference to the ground in a helicopter in order to hover. You cannot simply hover in instrument conditions because as you are flying on instruments, you have the three basic vectors, if you will. You've got your altitude, your airspeed, your bank angle, and your heading. Once you are hovering, you no longer have reference to drift. If you are drifting left or right or even backwards, that cannot be easily detected on instruments. So you cannot easily stop in the event of a emergency climb into the clouds and hover or get your way out. You have to climb out of the situation. You have to maintain forward airspeed. And looking at the ADS-B data, it looks like this aircraft initiated what appears to me to be a 180-degree turn to escape the weather and climb, and at the very end of the data, it looks like possibly entered IMC conditions and tried an emergency climb through the instrument conditions, through the clouds, to try to get to better conditions on top, or at least get away from the terrain. Unfortunately, the clouds obscured the mountains. That means the clouds were below the tops of the mountains, right about where the accident happened. So weather is going to be one of the big things that investigators are looking at in this accident. This is very similar to a case that NTSB is investigating that happened just a few weeks ago or a month ago over in Hawaii. These are all too common accidents in helicopter operations. Investigators will be able to quickly determine if the helicopter's engines were making the correct power setting as they survey the wreckage. If we get more information, we'll keep you posted, let you know here. Thanks for watching. See you here.